Assalamu alaikum, and a thoughtful welcome to Hidayah. We gather today to navigate one of the most profound intersections of faith and modernity, the ethical questions posed by rapid advances in medicine and biology. If you seek an Islamic compass to guide you through these complex frontiers, please support this journey of knowledge by subscribing and following our channel. Together, we can equip ourselves with divine wisdom for contemporary challenges. We stand at a remarkable and daunting crossroads in human history. Science has granted us powers once reserved for the divine. We can edit the very blueprint of life with CRISPR, create embryos in laboratories, prolong death with machines, and contemplate downloading consciousness. With each breakthrough, a chorus of urgent ethical questions arises. Is everything that can be done, should be done? Secular bioethics often struggles for a foundational why, oscillating between utilitarian calculus and ambiguous human rights. Islam enters this discourse not with reactive fear, but with a coherent, timeless framework rooted in a sacred vision of what it means to be human. Our guidance springs from the foundational principle of the Hurmat al-Hayah, the inviolable sanctity of life. This is not a vague sentiment, it is a divine decree. Allah states, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ, and we have certainly dignified the children of Adam. This dignity is inherent, granted by the Creator, and is not contingent on ability, stage of development, or utility. From this cornerstone flow the objectives of Islamic law, the maqasid al-Sharia, which we use to navigate bioethics, the preservation of faith, life, intellect, lineage, and property. Every medical dilemma is weighed against these higher purposes. Let us begin at the beginning of life. When does life worthy of protection begin? The Quran describes human development in the womb with awe-inspiring precision. ثُمَّ خَلَقْنَا النُّطْفَةَ عَلَقَةً فَخَلَقْنَا الْعَلَقَةَ مُضْغَةً فَخَلَقْنَا الْمُضْغَةَ عِظَامًا فَكَسَوْنَا الْعِظَامَ لَحْمًا ثُمَّ أَنشَأْنَاهُ خَلْقًا آخَرَ. Then we made the sperm drop into a clinging clot, and we made the clot into a lump of flesh, and we made from the lump bones, and we covered the bones with flesh. Then we developed him into another creation. The majority of classical scholars, based on prophetic narrations, hold that the soul, a ruh, is breathed into the fetus at 120 days, or 40 days, according to another opinion. This moment of ensoulment is of paramount ethical significance. However, Islamic law also grants the developing fetus increasing rights from the moment of conception, as it is a potential life and part of a lineage. Therefore, abortion is generally prohibited after implantation, with exceptions primarily to save the life of the mother, a choice for the greater preservation of one established life. This is not a casual permission, but a heavy, grievous allowance. Technologies like in vitro fertilization, IVF, are permissible within the Islamic framework, but with critical ethical boundaries designed to protect lineage, hifz an-nasab. The sperm and egg must be from a lawfully married husband and wife, and all embryos must be implanted in the wife's uterus to avoid any confusion of parentage. The creation of spare embryos for experimentation or their deliberate destruction is fraught with ethical problems, as they represent potential human lives. Now let us consider the other end of the spectrum, the end of life. Islam teaches a profound respect for the dying process and a clear definition of death. The principle is that life is to be cherished and preserved until its natural, divinely appointed term. Suicide is unequivocally forbidden, and this extends to euthanasia or physician-assisted suicide, even in cases of terminal illness. Why? Because taking a life, including one's own, is the sole prerogative of Allah, the giver of life. Suffering does not strip life of its sacredness. Rather, it calls for a redoubling of palliative care, compassion, and spiritual support. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "Indeed, Allah the Exalted is the one who gives and takes life, and He is the one who causes death and gives life." To actively end a life is to usurp this divine authority. However, Islam is not a religion of pointless suffering. The principle of Adam Adara, no harm, is central. This means that while we must not actively kill, we are also not obligated to employ extraordinary, burdensome, or futile means to prolong the dying process when death is inevitable. If treatment is merely delaying the moment of death with no hope of recovery, and it causes great distress to the patient, it may be withheld or withdrawn. This is not killing. It is allowing the natural process ordained by Allah to take its course. The determination of futility requires rigorous consultation between doctors, family, and scholars. Between the beginning and end of life lies the vast field of medical treatment and experimentation. The overarching rule is that seeking cure is not only permitted but encouraged. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "O servants of Allah, seek treatment, for Allah did not create a disease, except that He also created its cure." This establishes medicine as a noble, faith-affirming pursuit. However, the means of cure must be halal, lawful. This prohibits treatments derived from inherently impure or forbidden substances like medicines containing alcohol, if a permissible alternative exists, or therapies derived from human embryos destroyed for research. It also mandates that experimental treatments involve a rid al-mustanir, fully informed consent. The patient has the right to understand the risks, benefits, and alternatives, for their body is an amanah from Allah. Organ transplantation presents a powerful case study in applying Islamic principles. It embodies the tension between two sacred rules, the inviolability of the human body and the imperative to save life. Through scholarly consensus, ijma', donation has been deemed permissible, even praiseworthy, under specific conditions that tilt the scale toward saving life. It is considered an act of supreme charity. The conditions are strict. There must be genuine medical necessity, no commercial trafficking. The organ is a gift, not a commodity. Free and informed consent from the donor or their heirs after death, and certainty that the donation will not seriously harm the donor's own life or health. Brain death is widely accepted by Islamic jurists as a legitimate standard for declaring death, allowing for vital organ harvesting. This entire framework beautifully illustrates how Islamic law uses its higher objectives to solve modern dilemmas, prioritizing the preservation of life while safeguarding human dignity. The newest frontiers, like genetic engineering and artificial intelligence in medicine, push these principles further. Gene therapy to cure a debilitating disease like sickle cell anemia aligns with the preservation of life and intellect. However, ta'dil al-geni lit-tahsin, genetic enhancement for non-therapeutic purposes like selecting for intelligence or appearance, ventures into the realm of playing God, altering creation without a curative need, potentially creating societal inequalities, and challenging the acceptance of divine decree, al-Qadr. Similarly, AI diagnostics tools are permissible and beneficial aids, but they must remain tools under human, ethical oversight that ultimately bears the responsibility. The sanctity of the doctor-patient relationship, with its inherent compassion and accountability, must never be fully ceded to an algorithm. In all of this, the role of the Muslim healthcare professional is that of a moral agent, a khalifat, steward, entrusted with divine amana. Their duty extends beyond technical competence to being an advocate for the patient's holistic well-being, physical, emotional, and spiritual. They must facilitate the patient's ability to fulfill their religious obligations, even in illness, and provide space for spiritual care. Ultimately, Islamic bioethics calls us to a posture of humble stewardship. We are to use the intellect Allah gave us to explore His creation and seek cures, but we must do so within the moral universe He has ordained. Our bodies are not our property, they are a trust. Life is not ours to manufacture or terminate at will. It is a sacred loan. In every consultation room and research lab, we must ask not only can we do this, but should we, according to the higher purposes of our Creator. This divine framework ensures that our march of progress remains tethered to compassion, justice, and the awe-filled recognition that we are manipulators of a life that is, in its essence, a miraculous gift from Al-Hayy Al-Qayyum, the ever-living, the sustainer of all existence. Thank you for your commitment to growth. May Allah grant you beneficial knowledge, the strength to act upon it, and make you amongst those who hear the word and follow the best of it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.